America is facing an unprecedented economic storm. When President Donald Trump signed the new tariff order in April 2025, he declared this a historic step to protect the national economy. But what about reality? The American people, not our trade rivals, are the ones paying the highest price. Prices are climbing, businesses are struggling, and the wallets of millions of Americans are being eroded every day. Is this really rebuilding the economy or the worst financial shock in years? Everything starts with a signature. On April 4, 2025, President Donald Trump signed a new tariff order declaring this a step to rebuild the U.S. economy. But less than a week later, what people feel most clearly is not the recovery, but the economic shock that strikes right in their daily lives. At supermarkets, the prices of milk, meat, and vegetables all skyrocketed. Previously, a carton of eggs only cost a few dollars. Now that number is almost double. Middle-income families begin to have to cut back on spending and consider each item in their shopping basket. Senator Chuck Schumer warned, "This is not just a normal price increase, but a domino effect, spreading to every corner of the economy." Cars, the dream of many Americans, are now more out of reach than ever. New tariffs push up the price of imported components, forcing car manufacturers to increase selling prices. A new car can now cost thousands of dollars more than it did last year, causing many people to hesitate when thinking about buying a new car or upgrading an old vehicle. Not only food or cars, prices of furniture and electronic devices also increase. Those who are planning to renovate their homes or buy new appliances must reconsider. Even seemingly small things like clothes, shoes, or household appliances cannot escape the wave of price increases. According to estimates by Senator George S., each American household will lose about $5,000 USD more per year just because of rising prices. Protect American industry or put the burden on the shoulders of the people? As bills pile up, as the dream of owning a new car or simply a full meal becomes a burden, Americans begin to ask, who really benefits from this tariff decree? When prices skyrocket, not only are Americans' wallets affected, but even their jobs and incomes are in a state of uncertainty. A survey from the Atlanta Federal Reserve shows that U.S. financial executives are bracing for a turbulent 2025. They predict prices will continue to escalate, forcing businesses to tighten spending, cut recruitment, and even scale back operations. What does this mean? Many workers may lose their jobs, while those lucky enough to keep their jobs will also face stagnant wages amid the inflation storm. The cost of living is increasing, but income is decreasing, leaving millions of families in difficulty. If in the past a meal out, a new household item, or a weekend trip was easy, now it can become a luxury. Americans are losing not only money, but also stability in their lives. President Trump's new tax order is more than just a routine trade policy. It's a shock to global markets, pushing economic tensions to new heights. Mr. Trump claims that this new tariff will help America regain its glory. But in reality, it is causing prices to skyrocket and putting the burden on the American people. This tax policy applies on a large scale, with a basic import tax rate of 10% on all goods entering the U.S. However, that is just the tip of the iceberg. Dozens of countries, including longtime allies, have been hit with tariffs higher than the 10% rate, creating a backlash from trading partners. China is the main target, with import tariffs increased to 54%, a shocking figure when the country was previously subject to 20% tariffs, now with an additional 34%. The European Union fares no better, facing a 20% tariff, while Japan is taxed at 24%. Even Canada and Mexico, America's two largest trading partners, are still subject to high tariffs of 25%, although there has been no increase. Vietnam, the U.S.'s eighth largest trading partner, is subject to tariffs of up to 46%, one of the highest. But even this number is not the peak. The three countries with the highest taxes are Cambodia, Laos, and Madagascar, causing businesses there to have almost no opportunity to export to the U.S. market. With this policy, the U.S. is entering a new trade war, not only with rivals, but also with longtime friends. And in the end, the American people, not the countries subject to tariffs, are the ones who will feel the heat of this decision the most. President Trump's new tax policy is not a long-term plan with a slow impact. It takes effect immediately and will quickly create shocks in the markets. A general tariff of 10% on all imports will take effect from April 2025, while reciprocal tariffs targeting individual countries will begin on April 9, 2025. As soon as the decree takes effect, the prices of imported goods will skyrocket. From food, clothing, and household appliances to cars and electronics, everything will become more expensive. When import costs increase, businesses are forced to increase selling prices to cover losses, pushing inflation into a dangerous spiral. Americans, already struggling with the cost of living, will now have to pay more for things they once took for granted. But the impact does not stop within America's borders. Trade partners will certainly not sit still. Affected economies, from China to the European Union, Japan, and Vietnam, will likely respond with similar tariffs, taxing U.S. exports more heavily. A comprehensive trade war is forming, with unpredictable consequences for the entire global economy. With one decree, President Trump turned the economic world upside down. And in this storm, it is the American people who are the first to feel the consequences. President Trump's new tax policy not only causes direct effects on consumers, but also causes the U.S. economy to face a series of serious challenges. As import tariffs increase, raw material costs increase, and American businesses, especially manufacturing industries that depend on imported components, will suffer huge losses. Industries such as automobiles, electronics, and machinery manufacturing, which rely on raw materials from other countries, will face significantly higher production costs. This not only causes difficulties for businesses, but also creates great pressure on consumers. To compensate for increased costs, companies may be forced to increase product prices. However, this can cause consumer demand to decline when people cannot afford more expensive items. On the other hand, some companies may have to make difficult decisions, such as cutting labor, reducing production scale, or even closing. With rising costs and declining consumption, the risk of economic recession is huge. If prices continue to escalate, leading to a decrease in people's purchasing power, the U.S. economy may fall into stagnation. The signs of a recession are no longer a fantasy, but can become a reality, pushing the economy into a more difficult period than ever. Immediately after President Trump's tax decree was announced, America's trading partners could not sit still. They predict there will be strong response measures to protect their economy and rights. China, a major trading partner of the U.S., may increase taxes on goods exported from the U.S., harming U.S. businesses that depend on this giant market. New tariffs will make U.S. goods more expensive and more difficult to compete with, especially in sectors such as agricultural products, industry, and technology. The European Union also refused to stand aside. Coalition officials have spoken out about the possibility of retaliatory trade sanctions, which could include tariffs on American goods such as cars, electronics, or even consumer products such as food. This will increase tensions between the U.S. and its major allies, making global markets even more unstable. Japan, Canada, and Mexico, key trading partners of the United States, have also expressed concerns about the impact of the tax order. These countries fear that high tariffs will seriously affect their economies, while creating a wave of retaliation that could lead to a full-blown trade war. With a drastic response from affected countries, it can be said that President Trump's tax order not only exacerbates domestic economic problems, but also creates tense relationships, not only with opponents, but also with close allies. President Donald Trump confidently declared, "This is the day America is reborn." With this statement, he painted a bright vision for the future of the U.S. economy, where new tariff policies will create large sources of revenue to reduce taxes for people and reinvest in the domestic economy. He asserted that America would not only become richer, but also stronger than ever. Trump's argument is clear: use tariff proceeds to reduce domestic taxes, help American citizens keep more money in their hands, and create a sustainable growing economy. At the same time, he also pledged to use this revenue to pay off the national debt, helping America no longer depend on loans from abroad. In Trump's eyes, this is a plan to revitalize the economy and bring America back to a powerful era. However, the reality is not as simple as what Trump claims. While he painted a picture of prosperity, Americans faced increasing financial burdens. As tariffs escalate prices, from food to household appliances to cars, American consumers are the ones paying the highest price. The savings they thought they would get from tax cuts were wiped out by relentless price increases. Trump's policies, despite their good intentions, unintentionally pushed people into a financial crisis for which they were not prepared. President Trump has signed a tax decree that can completely change the landscape of the U.S. economy. But will this decision really benefit the country, or will it just cause the American people to suffer severe consequences? The cost of living is rising, businesses are taking a hit, and the risk of recession is looming. Meanwhile, U.S.-Russia relations are showing signs of improvement, but the relationship is still full of tension. Ukraine is in the middle of a difficult situation, and the West still maintains a tough stance against Russia. What will the future of the U.S. economy be when the trade war can become a total disaster? Only time will answer these questions, as recent decisions are pushing everything into a precarious situation.